emergency and rescue personnel have been working around the clock to try and assist those trapped in their homes due to floods in KwaZulu-Natal. And that's as the death toll from the flooding there climbs to 59 at least. Let's get you the latest on rescue efforts on the ground. We're joined this morning by the National Sea Rescue Institute's spokesperson, Craig Lambinon. Craig, thanks very much indeed for coming onto the program. Give us a sense, as we're talking to you now, about just how difficult the conditions in the province is making your own efforts to help.
Michelle, thank you. Yes, our condolences are conveyed from all of the emergency services involved to families who have lost loved ones in this tragedy. Our thoughts are with the families who still have people missing. This has been a massive coordinated response by all of the emergency services, all the way up to disaster risk management. Have been involved from Port Edward, Shelly Beach, Rocky Bay, Durban and Ballito, eThekwini lifeguards and the lifeguards south and Kwadakuza lifeguards on the north, police search and rescue, private and government ambulance services, fire and rescue services, a massive response. Thousands of people were rescued. Buildings, port helicopter was used to get people off the SAPRA building in the port of Durban. It really has been an all personnel, no matter who was not on duty, was brought in. Understandably, a lot of jet skis, boats were used, floating devices, but we also commend the community that came together in assisting each other during this time. But this has been it's been a massive incident, and it is obviously, it is continuing to a degree. There are still operations underway. We are continuing to appeal to the public. Don't try to cross over swollen rivers or flooded areas. Don't drive over bridges that are under flood. Stay on higher ground. Stay at home at this stage while the situation is still being properly assessed by the authorities. There are roads that are collapsing, infrastructure that's unsafe, and our appeal is to everybody to remain safe. But we also have to take this opportunity to commend the massive response by the emergency services that came together in a very trying time.
Yeah. It's really hard to think that the death toll may well have been much, much higher than this already shocking number that we're seeing now of 59 lives lost. Craig, in your experience of disasters of this nature, would you say, I mean, for us who are tracking the story from other provinces, the pictures and the visuals we're seeing are quite disturbing. In your experience, is this one of the worst incidents we've seen, at least in KZN, in recent history?
But most certainly it is. Certainly in recent history that we know of. The NSRI itself had the NSRI Gauteng on high alert, the NSRI in the Eastern Cape, they went on high alert to send resources if required. But generally speaking, the province's emergency response was able to deal with as much of the entrapments, the displacements, rescuing people off the plain floods, the flooded plains that are on the a plain flood area. So it really has been a really massive response to a really massive incident.
Of course, it's not the first time there's been a flooding incident of this extent in KwaZulu-Natal. Again, I'm going to ask you to tap into your own experience, Craig, because, you know, have you seen any improvements in previous years where this has happened? And we saw issues of infrastructure, the real damage and the lack of maintenance there contributing to the level of the disaster that we're seeing. Have you seen any improvement here? And I suppose the pictures speak for themselves in answering that question.
Yes, I think from our perspective, it's really we are all on, even though we volunteers, we're on duty 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And everybody came together in a very trying time. Certainly from previous incidents of this nature, there's no difference in the emergency services response to an incident like that, where really everybody comes together, the police, the ambulance services, fire and rescue, the volunteer rescue services, lifeguards, NSRI, community emergency response units, even private security companies, even the likes of the tow truck services, that really we deal with each other all the time anyway. And it's always heartwarming to see the level of camaraderie between all of these services, and the way that they come together in drawing in additional resources as is required. But in this case, understandably, very sadly, there has been loss of life. There are still cases, potentially even more than what we may imagine at this stage, of people missing. And there's a lot of infrastructure damage and public roadways and so on that are damaged, that is going to take quite a mopping up operation.
Yeah. So as of this Wednesday morning, are there still very much search and rescue operations that are underway to try and get to people who may well still be saved, or try and retrieve people who have been swept away by the floods?
This is now still search and rescue. There are still cases going on. We know that from this morning there were some cases, obviously also, but all the way down to Port Edward, where we've had incidents as well. But again, it's a case of the services are prepared for that. They are using whatever resources. We believe that there are additional air resources that are being pulled in by government to assist in this operation. But generally speaking, we would encourage the public to, wherever possible, stay safe. And like we say, don't try to cross any swollen rivers, any waterways that are under flood, and certainly not try to cross over bridges that are under flood.
Yeah, certainly worthwhile and life-saving advice there. Craig, let me thank you for your time this morning. Craig Lambinon is the spokesperson at the National Sea Rescue Institute, as we continue to track what is really still the dominating story on this Wednesday morning of the floods and the aftermath there in KwaZulu-Natal.